JJ Redick meets the scribes, and the scribes wag their tails begging for the Lakers' table scraps. A former USC recruit commits to Georgia, and Clayton Kershaw's rehab gets shut down for a week. Good morning. I'm James. This is your daily dose of sports and snark for the greatest sports city in the world, Los Angeles. This is the faithful Angelenos Morning Report. And so it is June 25th, 2024, back to work in the Midwest. You can just smell the passive aggressiveness. Refreshing. But by the way, it's a lovely day because we get to talk about LA sports. And if you like being in the know about LA, click the like button. Click the subscribe button. There's a notification bell. Hit that. It'll let you know we drop new content. Sharing is caring. Let people know we exist. And by all means, comment. Now, before we go through the news and notes, a look at the scoreboard. Dodgers 3, White Sox 0. Kike Hernandez doubles in a run, scores another. And today, the Dodgers are still in Chicago to play the White Sox on the south side. Been to that stadium. Oh, boy, I don't want to hear anybody talking about what LA doesn't have going for it. The south side of Chicago? Hell no. Bobby Miller is 1-1 with an ERA of 6. Chris Flexen, very masculine name, I must say. 2-6 with a 5.03 ERA. What do you say we get to the news? New Lakers coach JJ Redick met with the press yesterday, and I must admit, now I know what it feels like to go on a Bumble date and have my match lie repeatedly within minutes of the handshake. Most of what I took away from the presser was how everybody at the dais appeared to lie, and the press just lapped it up. For example, and by the way, I hate saying this kind of stuff because I've been a lifelong Laker fan, but I also know when I'm being lied to. For example, the claim that Redick never talked with LeBron James until after he was offered the gig. I mean, seriously, that is Tinder profile pic level deception there. Redick ran a podcast with James as his co-host, and they never talked about the Laker gig. And you buy that? Really? Then Rob Pelinka comes along and he jerks our chains a little bit more by claiming that it wasn't about LeBron James, but how Anthony Davis was the go-to player during the hiring process instead. And I'm sitting there thinking to myself, bro, you can lie to Adele all you want to keep that relationship going, but you don't have to lie to us, right? Be real. We'll understand, kinda. And instead of grilling the Lakers front office on why they should spend the waning amount of time that LeBron James has on the court, the little time left, the little sands through the hourglass left in his career, by risking it, by hiring such an unfathomable choice as a podcaster for a head coach, the press instead did a 180 and exclaimed that Redick is so committed to winning that he's going to shut down his podcast. Whoa. And the ground beneath us trembled with the news. I mean, seriously, what a bunch of simpletons. They're acting as if Redick was building this podcasting empire to rival Joe Rogan's, and just only now decided to put that on hold so that he could coach the humble, lowly 17-time NBA champs. Are you starting to get the idea that this sounds stupid? Because it is stupid. I'm not saying that Redick is going to fail. I'm not even saying that I hope Redick fails. I'm saying you've made an extremely controversial hire. And if you're going to make a controversial hire, don't lie to us about it. Admit it. Some of you guys are not going to like this. Here's why we hired him. We think this, we see this, we see this. And then let the chips fall where they may. This was none of what I heard yesterday was true. Now, if you're looking for anything that sounds halfway optimistic, Redick was asked about his coaching philosophy and said, quote, "I'm going to use math," unquote, which is snarky, but I'm hoping that means that he wants to upgrade the Lakers' analytics staff to try to find ways to maximize their players. That is fine by me. But again, the scribes who originally panned the move are now claiming that oh my God, this could work out. If you're wondering whether the scribes actually have a spine, the answer is no. I realize some of you guys have disagreed with me on this, and that's fine. It actually is. This is not a show for hot takes. This is a show for discussion. I would love to be wrong, but recent Lakers coaching history suggests that this is another move destined to fail. Oh, I'm going to use math. So what? Mark D'Antoni used math. At least Luke Walton spent time as an assistant before he was a head coach. Now, as for the next step with the Lakers offseason, if you've gone online at all, you've been hearing about all kinds of unsubstantiated rumors. Nothing with sources say. It's just a blogger citing a report that cites no sources. Who will the Lakers lure with 3 tradable first-round picks? Now, let's get to reality. The issue is twofold. The Lakers are over the cap. Just not over to the extent that the Clippers are. Those guys are super duper over the cap. If they go almost as deep as the Clippers are over the cap, all player movement becomes extremely restricted. The new collective bargaining agreement has something called aprons. The first apron is basically being traditionally over the cap. The second apron means, pretty much in simplistic terms, any move that you make has to be matched dollar for dollar. There cannot be any discrepancies, which is the problem the Clippers have now. So, the Lakers are just over the cap. They can still make player moves without having to go dollar for dollar. Say the Lakers decide to sign guard DeJounte Murray of Atlanta. ESPN gave this as an example. If they signed DeJounte Murray, they'd be past the second apron, just like the Clippers. They would not be able to make player movements unless it was dollar for dollar, and other players would have to go. For example, they wouldn't even be able to keep Max Christie. So the Lakers have to be extremely cautious with who they decide to take. Meanwhile, over with USC, I think we all had a feeling that what I'm about to tell you was destined to happen. But I've said a number of times that we don't want to spend a lot of time talking about the decision process in the teenage mind, because they're teenagers, guys. So, 5-star defensive edge for the class of 2025, Isaiah Gibson. He's a one-time USC commit, decommitted last week. He flipped his commitment to the college in his home state, Georgia. And Gibson then said all the things that you would expect a teenager to say when they're trying to sound like an adult. So I don't want to be too critical of him. Again, he's a kid. He may be as big as a house, but he's still a kid. But I also don't think we should be too critical of Lincoln Riley. Gibson is the top edge rusher in high school football. Riley would be foolish not to try to land him. To just sit there and wave his hands and say, screw it, he's in Georgia, it's not happening. I wouldn't do that. I would try to land him as well. But I would say that it still stings for USC. They had a top 5 class for the recruiting class of 2025. And this week, it's dropped to 18th. So it's not good news. We got to keep things real. Speaking of reality, Clayton Kershaw will not make his second rehab start tonight. But the silver lining for him, at least he's not in Oklahoma City right now. He was shut down by the Dodgers completely due to, quote, lingering soreness in the wake of offseason shoulder rehab. He had surgery in the offseason. An MRI indicated that there was not any new damage to the shoulder. Dave Roberts was spinning it by saying it's not surprising Kershaw would have a setback. Anybody has setbacks along with their rehab. But the future Hall of Famer will not pitch at all for at least a week. Anytime somebody who's already on the injured list seems to need time on the injured list while they're on the injured list, like it's double injured list, I'm sorry, you can spin that. And hopefully it's accurate. But there's something about that sounds inherently disturbing. Like Max Muncy was supposed to be back a month ago. We have no idea exactly when he's coming back right now. But anyway, the Dodgers are still going to be needing starting pitching. They just need to wait for these guys to get healthy again. Meanwhile, Teoscar Hernandez took a day away. Hopefully it's only a day. It was due to personal reasons. So thankfully that guy's healthy. With the Clippers, ESPN's Brian Windbag is claiming that Paul George could opt in with his contract and then get traded. And once again, the bloggers prematurely burst through their drawers. Do you know how much of a this was for these guys, these bloggers? Imagine a bottle of Jergens lotion getting torn to shreds by a machine gun. That's how the bloggers reacted to Windbag. Just a coating the walls with their own excitement, if you will. Windbag, by the way, had zero sources. Zip. Complete unsourced speculation that you and I could come up with if we split a dime bag. And so that Windbag sparked a competition with former ESPN hype monster Mark Stein, who speculated the Golden State Warriors would be in to try to land George in a sign and trade. So how does that work exactly? Golden State, dynasty that missed the playoffs last year. How are those guys exactly going to land the top prize in the NBA offseason? How? How many assets do they have to give up? And by the way, why would the Clippers send him in the division? You do realize that both of these teams are desperately hoping to keep any chance that they have at another title run alive, right? Clippers get rid of Paul George, their chances are pretty much shot. The Warriors, if they tear apart their roster to get Paul George, they're shot, okay? And what do the Clippers have, or I should say, what do the Warriors have that the Clippers want? Exactly. Meanwhile, back in the real world, ESPN is reporting that James Harden wants to see what happens with George before Harden makes a move. So now that we've kicked the flaming bag of rumor turds off of the front porch of truth with the Clippers, I want to repeat the reality of the Clippers situation, just like we repeated the reality of the Lakers salary cap situation. We mentioned earlier that the Clippers are above the so-called second apron, which is highly restricted to player movement. Those rules were put in place to keep owners like Steve Ballmer from creating super teams one generation after another simply by opening the checkbook. We already know if this new salary cap were not in play, Ballmer would cut George the max check and just be done with it. Same for Harden. So this is not a matter of whether or not the Clippers want to sign him. It's a matter of just whether or not the rules will permit it. I have no reason to believe the Kings are going to go big game hunting this offseason, now that the Stanley Cup has been hoisted. They didn't go big game hunting. They already did big sloth purging, which is enough of a victory in itself. Point being, General Manager Rob Blake is trying to take care of the restricted free agents that he has on his roster before trying to figure about adding. Forward Samuel Fagemo signed a one-year, two-way contract. Under the terms of the deal, Fagemo can be sent to the minor league affiliate in Ontario, but in the grand scheme of things, why the hell would you do that? Fagemo has dominated the AHL. He had 43 goals in 50 games last year. What does he have left to prove over there? He can either cut it in the NHL or he can't. It's as simple as that. And by the way, speaking of missteps by Kings general manager Rob Blake, take a moment and congratulate former Kings defenseman Tobias Bjornfot, someone Blake put on waivers earlier this year. Bjornfot's going to get his name on the Stanley Cup. He was eventually picked up by Vegas, but then later on picked up by the Florida Panthers. He is a Stanley Cup champion, and he has Rob Blake, in a sense, to thank for it. Rams wide receiver Cooper Kupp told the Scribes that he is launching a podcast with a surprise co-host. I bring this up not to hype Kupp's podcast, but I wonder if the surprise co-host is Matthew Stafford's wife, Kelly. Maybe they could share stories about Matthew too, right? Welcome to the Cooper Kupp Show. Today I want to break down how Matthew Stafford and I led the Rams on a last-minute drive to win the Super Bowl. Welcome my surprise host, Kelly Stafford. Kelly, what would you like to talk about? And then she's like, oh, thanks for having me, Cooper. I'd like to talk about how I manipulated my husband and made him look like a cuck in public. I keep reading this story because it keeps updating, and I swear to God, I shouldn't swear to God, but I swear, I wonder if any man is safe out there with these kind of ladies running around. Not that men are perfect, but Matthew Stafford doesn't need a new contract from the Rams. What he needed was a damn prenup. Derek Hamby was replaced, by the way, by Sparks teammate, Cameron Brink was replaced on the USA 3-on-3 Olympic team by her Sparks teammate, Derek Hamby, which sounds nice until you remember it's 3-on-3. 3-on-3 basketball is not a sport. It's a rec league game. But you let me know what you think in the comments thread. Did you take a different opinion on J.J. Redick's opening press conference at the Lakers than I did? Are you okay with USC's recruiting class despite one of their top recruits going to Georgia? And if you enjoyed the content, don't forget to subscribe to Faithful Angelenos. We're talking LA sports every single day here. Thank you for watching. I'm James. We'll be back tomorrow. Faithful Angelenos is a Kian Cortel Queso production. Take care.